And welcome back. Continuing with reaction to last night's presidential cabinet reshuffle, President Cyril Ramaphosa has made changes to his cabinet. Among them, the requested departure of Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, who's been replaced by Enoch Godongwana. A former Health Minister, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, has resigned under a cloud of corruption allegations, and he's been replaced by Dr. Phaahla, who was his deputy. The president has also announced that the State Security Minister, or the ministry rather, will now move to the Presidency to ensure the country's domestic and foreign intelligence is in the Presidency. Meanwhile, the ruling ANC says it has become aware of communication seeking to instigate a second wave of violence and disorder in the country. And the party has also announced that registered voters in communities where the ANC has presence will be able to participate in community meeting sessions to elect the party's local government ward candidates. So to discuss some of these developments in the political sphere, we're joined by Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, who's political analyst from the University of Pretoria. Prof, good morning. Good to speak to you again.
Good morning, Sakina, and good morning to your viewers.
I'm dying to know your first reaction to the cabinet reshuffle.
It's a massive one, Sakina. It's quite huge. Some people estimate that he moved every fourth cabinet minister either to a new portfolio or out of the cabinet. So it's quite a massive one. The biggest changes being in the ministries of state security and defense. Health was always on the cards given the scandals that have been swelling over the head of the minister. Tito Mboweni is quite a surprise. We knew that he has joked from time to time about wanting to retire, but we didn't realize how serious it was. So there it is, it has happened. So, but I think the biggest is the moving of state security to the presidency, causing fears of a super presidency or a paranoid presidency, whichever way you look at it.
So if we were to look at some of the reasons for the president making that particular move, as you say, whichever way you decide to look at it, it's a massive move. Let's start with the paranoia. What sort of paranoia would the president be dealing with at the moment to move that ministry into the presidency?
Well, it means now, Sakina, that the president will be hands-on. He will be privy to the day-to-day goings-on in the state security world of spies and allegations and all that sort of thing. So you can end up with a president who is very paranoid because he knows every little hint and clue and allegation about security issues because he deals with them every day, and he might be tempted to become a president who sort of leads by means of security control. So that is the fear, and of course that he may become too powerful if you look at all the other things that are within the sphere of influence of the president.
The ministry has been a mess for a long time. And if you look at this latest move, of course, is it a good thing for democracy? It is, of course, not a new thing. It has been done before. It has been done in other countries. You look at Rwanda, for example. Is it necessarily a good thing for South Africa right now?
Well, given the scare that we had in July with the unrest and the state security cluster looking at sixes and sevens, given that scare, maybe it's not such a bad thing. We probably would rather have this than be insecure as a country and not know from which side the next insurrection will come. So I don't know that many South Africans will mind as long as the presidency uses that massive state security power responsibly to protect democracy and not against the citizens.
Well, that's a tough ask, isn't it? Especially given all the strife that is going on. And also, I saw, some people were raising the issue of it being all good when perhaps you have a president that is trusted, if you will. But what happens if you have a president that goes rogue one way or another, and you have all of that power that comes with that ministry vested in that one office?
The thing, Sakina, is the president doesn't need to move state security into his office to become too powerful, because the president can control ministries from where he sits. After all, they all report to him or her, whoever the president is. So there is a sense in which we can't be over-concerned about the mere moving of the ministry. It could actually speak to the fact that this president has not used his power as he ought to have, and that's why he feels the need to bring this ministry into his office. But it's not necessary for that ministry to be in his office for him to be effective, really, if he was and has always been in charge of all the ministries. I mean, this July saga exposed him because he really looked lost. Even the fact that he's still appointing a task team now to look at security issues tells you that he still doesn't know what the hell happened.
So if we look at some of the other movements, political chairs, musical chairs, some are calling it, let's talk briefly to the finance ministry, because that's a crucial one at a time when the country really is in desperate need of direction in this regard. We were floundering before the pandemic, and now we are in absolute dire straits, if you will, because it really is tough for South Africans at the moment economically, Professor. So, Enoch Godongwana, what does this mean? Your view first and foremost in terms of whether this was the best person, whether this was the only person that could be moved to that position.
Well, you can never talk about the only person, but he certainly is not an unknown entity. And that's part of what's good with his appointment. He has been working in the background in matters financial and economic within the ANC. He is a known entity. He is predictable. There are no surprises that are going to come from him. He has always been influential in economic policy. But behind the scenes, in a sense, it's a kind of reward, bringing him to the front now. He is a very knowledgeable person in that whole area of finance and economics, and comes with a lot of experience from within the party, very well trusted in the party. And I think the markets will not say Enoch who. They will know who he is, and that, I think, is part of what is good about his appointment.
But at the same time, if you look at where the country is this not in part a function of ANC economic policy?
It is. It is a consolidation of ANC economic policy. Because unlike Mboweni, who could speak out of turn from time to time, and seem to have his own mind on things, Godongwana is likely to be the doctrinaire ANC economics minister. But I think he is too knowledgeable, too experienced in that whole area merely to become a rubber stamp or a party chief. I think he knows exactly what a Minister of Finance is expected to be and to do at this time in our country, given the economic dire straits that you rightfully have referred to.
Could one not argue equally, though, Professor, that if you take someone, and Leanne and Lumkile Mondli were talking about a checkered past for Enoch Godongwana coming into this. At some point, when he was deputy minister in one of the portfolios, left because of, allegations of corruption. And now you bring Enoch Godongwana into this most powerful of positions in cabinet. Does that not hamstring him in some way? Does this not mean that you have power over him to quite a large degree as the president? Because, listen, remember, this is what you come with.
Yeah, well, that is true. He does have that checkered past. But, there are ministers in this cabinet with more complicated checkered pasts, as it were. And I think if the president went by that, he might have had to rule the country on his own or with very few people. So he does
So
have
what does that say,
past.
Professor?
One hopes...
What does that say about the cleanup campaign? What does that say about getting rid of corruption if you then continue to recycle this failure, as it were?
This is part of the weakness of this current reshuffle, because if you look at it, there is a real reshuffle here and there, such as the coming in of the likes of Enoch Godongwana and the elevation of Joe Phaahla into the Ministry of Health and Thandi Modise in defense. That's real reshuffling. The rest is simply filling in vacancies and musical chairs, as you refer to it, moving people around. And it does tell you that he does have limited options, because whatever else a cabinet reshuffle is, it's not merely a government business thing. It's a party political thing. And the ANC is going into its own elective conference very soon. So he has had to look at all of that, and he has had to work with what the party has given him, more or less. And he doesn't have as much scope as his predecessor had. Jacob Zuma could wake up in the middle of the night and change the cabinet. He has now to consult a lot more because of the mistakes that were made in the past, and has to please a lot more people in the process.
Who are those people that need to be pleased?
Just come again, Sakina.
Who does the president need to please? Who are these people that he needs to consult beyond the party?
Well, the party is a big part of it. The consultation. There are the alliance partners also, who insist on being consulted nowadays. But he also has to look behind his own back, because he wants a second term. So he needs to have a team around him who will inspire enough confidence for that re-election to happen, and for the ANC to be able to proceed with a semblance of unity, because in recent times it has seemed like it has been about to implode. So all of those considerations have to be taken into account when he does the reshuffle. And he also has to look at people whom he truly can trust. And the problem with that is that 3 months ago, if you and I had spoken, we would have listed Zweli Mkhize among the people that he trusts. But look what has happened now.
But of course, Prof, we have to leave it there. But some would say, even then, where was the presidential prerogative? Because the president, given everything that was happening around Dr. Zweli Mkhize, should have acted. He didn't. Waited for Professor Zweli Mkhize to resign. But we have to leave it there, Prof. We'll hopefully speak again at a later stage. Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, political analyst from the University of Pretoria, talking to us about the cabinet reshuffle, as well as the we didn't get to the selection process that we wanted to talk about around local government elections, but I'm sure we will have time for that.